Hey gang, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I promise I'm going to finish this painting someday. I thought I was going to finish it last night and I worked on it some and then I just ran out of gas about 10 o'clock. It's unusual for me to run out of gas that early, but I did. So I got to the point that I didn't trust my judgment anymore. That's always a good place to stop. Okay. Most of the painting is finished. Let me show you. I think I'm done all the way down to these three figures walking across the road. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what I did. Yeah, one of my regular viewers pointed out to me that, and I had actually caught it earlier, but I hope nobody else would notice. Marcus caught it that my crosswalk was going right into the side of this car. Now, it's still going into the back side of this car, but anyway, one of the things I've done here is I moved the crosswalk from down to here to up here. That was quite the process, and I would have loved to have you watching me, but I honestly wasn't sure how I was going to do it. So I did that all without your company. It entailed scraping with a curved blade knife, like an X-Acto knife that's rounded instead of straight. I'll show that to you someday. That's a good tool to have on hand. It also involved some sandpaper. In other words, it was quite the business just getting this crosswalk moved. So now it's not such a bad issue. What is really happening is whoever parked this car parked illegally. That's what's really going on. And I was hoping, as I said, nobody else would notice. But Marcus, I'm glad you noticed. Really, because if you notice, that means other people would as well. So I took a while and did that. Then I've just done little things, still fiddling with the sky and the sky up there, and stuff like that. So now I'm all the way down to basically all I have to finish is these three figures, and I've already been working on them for a while. Again, I wish I could have had you tagging along the whole time, but we'll make the best of it. So here's the principle that I think you need to watch out for when you're doing, in my abstract realism, when you're doing figures in a scenic or landscape painting. If you catch my distinction, this is not a figurative painting. This is not a painting about figures. That's the rules. In my opinion, the rules change significantly. This is for you landscape people like me who want to put some people. In fact, I'm teaching a class on this coming Thursday, so I hope I'll be able to broadcast from my class as well. And if anybody, I'm going to tell my students on Thursday about this video right here. The key concept, two key concepts. One, your figures have to be correct. You can't have the head too big, head too small, arms too short, legs too short. No, your ratios have to be correct. You cannot use your abstraction or your impressionism as an excuse for bad drawing. That does not work. That is not impressionistic painting. Unfortunately, that is, for too many people, in fact, exactly what impressionistic painting is. It's used as an excuse for drawing poorly. So I'm going to try to draw accurately, but loosely. So let's show you how some of that's done. And again, I'm already some distance down the road. This is a term I'm going to use a lot on Thursday night in my class. I taught a drawing class on this subject just a week ago, and I use this term a lot. The pictures in a cloud trick, pictures in a cloud approach to painting. I'm assuming that you can figure out what I mean by pictures in a cloud. When we were kids, and hopefully you still do it, when at the right time you lay on a grassy hill. I'm really idealizing this situation a good bit. You lay on a grassy hill and you look at the cumulus clouds wafting through the blue sky above you. And you look for pictures, right? And you say things when you're playing this game. Hi, Artist Ross. When you play this game, you say things like, oh, look, look, look. I see a man eating an ice cream cone. That's one of my most favorite. There's an old man smoking a pipe. Whatever. Got it? Look, look, look. It looks exactly like an alligator. Blah, 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 blah. You got the idea, right? That's what I'm calling the picture in a cloud. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm looking for things, and I've been doing this on these figures already for some time. I'm looking for things that look like figures. In other words, of course, I could, for instance, I could break out a pencil here and I could just very carefully and very analytically draw a person. But when you do that, the figure you draw tends to be rather contrived, stiff, predictable. In fact, this character right here, a couple days, Saturday I think it was, when I was painting downtown on location, he was facing this way, and all of a sudden at one point, picture in the clouds game, I went, oh, wait a minute, he's not facing, he's facing the other way. This is a shoulder that we're seeing. So ever since then, I've been pursuing that. Just a minute before you came on, I realized if this arm is going forward, then this arm should be coming back. So I moved it coming back. And maybe there's a little bit of a nape. I'm saying it's a him. I don't know that it's a him, but I think it is. And in time will tell as I proceed, as I progress. A hint of a hand and a hint of an arm coming back here, and I guess a hint of another hand. So I want you to pay attention to the way that I'm moving, the way that I'm drawing. I'm drawing with my left hand now, so my left hand, of course, has much less control than my right hand. Now, this leg obviously is coming forward, and he's, by the way, yes, all these, since I moved the crosswalk, I'm not moving my people. They are all walking, they're all jaywalking, they're all walking outside of the crosswalk, and yeah, that doesn't bother me a bit. I think that's pretty realistic of city dwellers. They're not, at least in our town, they're not terribly fussy about staying exactly inside the crosswalk. You just walk close to the crosswalk. Now let me mix up and my colors will get little by little, they'll get slightly more intense. But emphasis on the word slightly. Again, I don't want these figures. I mean, I just put a bunch of light colored on his shirt. And that's about as intense as I want these people to be. In other words, I do not want them intense. I want them pretty subtle. So there, just because I lightened that leg, now this is the one in front, this is the one in back, and I made his pant leg bluer, which is good. You know, blue jeans are ubiquitous. Now, I think that we should be seeing the back of his head more. We're seeing too much head here. So I'm going to darken the back of his head so it looks like he's looking the other way. In fact, he could be, because this man's arm, and again, I think that's a man. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a man. This man's arm is coming forward. How did that happen? It just happened. Okay, so if this guy is twisting, then it's likely that his shirt fabric will have a twist in it, something like that. Now, hey, Bob. Yeah, I trust my left hand almost more than my right, not for the very counterintuitive reasons, not because my left hand paints better, but almost the opposite. It's because my left hand paints worse. Therefore, I trust it more. I always, when I'm painting with my right hand, I'm always afraid that I'm getting tight and turning into a control freak, a painter control freak, if you know what I mean by that. Let's mix up a medium gray. This guy's shirt now is all too light, so there. Okay, I seem to be having the most success with this character. Now, one of the problems I have right now is I'm holding all these brushes in my hand. But when I designed this easel, when I bought this easel, I made a bunch of modifications. One of which was drilling these holes to hold brushes there. So let's do that now. And I can put my pencil down right there. And forgive me, I'm going to move this. And then let me see if I can move you just a little bit. Forgive me for all the shaking. Music, I found a new tripod, by the way, that I think I'm going to like. It's not a traditional camera tripod. It's a light stand, and it lets me raise the tripod higher than a traditional camera tripod, and also has a narrower footprint at the bottom. So that's good for when I'm painting at weddings. I'm very conscious of creating a trip hazard. Okay, I'm gonna leave this character now for a minute. He's perhaps a little more finished, so let's leave him for now. Oh, I say that and then I keep fiddling. One more stroke. I'm going to do the front of his face, this edge, a little bit lighter, and see. How about an ear back here with that? Nah. Okay, how about the back of his neck? He has a short haircut, and we see bare skin on the back of his neck. How about his hand? I keep saying I'm going to leave him, then I keep fiddling. I'm bad at that, aren't I? Pay no attention to what I'm saying. Just watch me paint. Okay, now let's work on these two, either one. Ratios, it looks to me like his shirt, there was a season a few years ago when t-shirts were supposed to be really long, like they hung halfway down your thigh, but I think that's not the style anymore. I pay so little attention to clothing styles, it's hard for me to do that. That was just a scribble, pure and simple, as was that. Man, he almost has a face. I don't want him to have much of a face. But if there are any marks at all, they have to be in the right place. They can't be, it can't kind of look like the bottom of the nose, like that did, but be a little too high. So I just moved this mark. By the way, rule of thumb, figures in landscape, the dividing line is facial features. In my opinion, if you get all the way to facial features, you've gone too far. That is, you're doing too much detail. So the most I will ever do, and I've got it here, is a horizontal line across the middle of the head to indicate eyes. And even that might be too much. Okay, I can leave him. Now, the gap between his legs, I'm thinking I can come up a little higher. I think that's right. Now, this is kind of like sky holes. I'm painting the road, the street behind these figures. Okay, I'm about to be called for lunch.
It's lunchtime.
Okay, thanks. I'll be down in a minute. So, sorry about that. I have to take a little break. I'm just working on the crosswalk because it comes into there, becomes important down here. It's too much. There we go. Fairly happy with both of these figures. This looks like a woman, and she definitely needs some work, but I'm going to leave her just like that for now. Sorry. All right, I'm back. It really is a good idea very often to take a little break, step away from your painting and come back to it, because as I have just done right now, you see things with new eyes from just taking a little break. So this guy's legs were too long. Now, I'm not sure about the position of his left arm, so let's play with that a little bit. I suppose it goes without saying, by the way, that what I'm doing here can only be done in oils, and this is a big part of the reason why I like oil paint so much better than acrylic. Now, if you're doing this kind of thing in acrylic, what you have to do is you cover up each subsequent layer, covers up the one before it, right? So it's a little bit messier because it gets kind of thick after a while. But with oils, you can move things around and so forth. I'm also not sure I like this hand coming all the way back here like that, and not sure that I like his right shoulder being back so far. So again, all these this is how I recommend this. Of course, this is not the only way. One of you might be asking, yeah, but what happens if your figure, like, it has to be a little girl and her mother holding hands and pushing a grocery cart? Then you don't have so much. Good question, glad you asked that. Okay, so the answer is you still do the same, in my opinion, you still do the same kind of picture in the clouds game, connect the dots game, but it's just more restricted. In fact, to tell you the truth, it's actually, the game is quite a bit easier when there are parameters, when you have a clearer idea what it is you want to render, because it limits the pictures in the clouds, actually makes it quite a bit easier. Still not terribly happy with this guy. So I'll keep wrestling until I get something I like. I'm going to add some warmth to his shoulder there. And I'm wondering what would happen if I made this arm bent instead of going straight back, which I had a moment ago. Now I feel like he needs a little bit more rump, a bit more hip in the back there. I know what's bothering me. Whew, that's a relief. This leg is too far forward. I'm just going to move this leg back. I was getting carried away with the drama of his body twist, but I think it was too much. Okay, so once again, I hope that some of what you're catching here, if you want to be influenced by me, and of course this is by no means the only way to paint, the only way to paint people, but I think it's a good way to do it. Notice oh, here I got a handful of brushes again, don't I? Let me take a second and stick some of these back in here so I can paint with my left hand. It does drive me crazy after a while if I start finding myself painting too much with just one hand. And again, let me repeat for perhaps anybody who's just joined us recently, I want these figures to remain really quite muted. I don't want them drawing a lot of attention. I mean, and they will be seen. No worry about that. Just the fact that they're figures. In fact, I have a term, I call it psychological focal points. Everybody knows about focal points, right? Area of lightest and darkest, contrast, sharp edges, bright color, and position on the canvas. All those things help determine what is a focal point, right? But there's also, in addition to that, the human element. That is, anytime you put, especially if you just put one figure. Ironically, if I eliminated all these three figures and just had one, it would actually have even more psychological gravity than it does with three. With three people, it's a group. You say, yeah, it's a group of people. No problem. I'll let them pass, so to speak. Yeah, I see them there. Good, they're having a good time. I don't have to feel sorry for them. If it's just one person, you kind of go, oh, what if he's having a bad day? I know perhaps I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. A single lone figure has just like the word sounds. It sounds like a lone figure, and but the concept of a psychological focal point can be a very important concept for many artists to keep in mind. Here's another trick that I'm not doing it right now, I'm just talking about it. After having rendered a figure, a human being in your painting many times, because it takes a lot of work to get the anatomy correct and believable, not just the anatomy, but the position, the movement of the figure. It takes a lot of work to get it just right. So many times after having done all that, you discover it's like, oh, now he, she, it is too tight. Does that make sense? Often that happens. And here's a really nice, easy trick, especially, again, in oils. I make no apologies for the defending. Oils are popular because they are the easiest medium in the world. I always feel bad for you scaredy cats who are afraid to try oils and you just want to do acrylics. The reason is because water comes out of your tap in your house. That's why you feel like a water-based medium is easier than an oil-based. You're scared off, some of you, if you're my age, you're scared off by the fact that oil paints used to be toxic and come from a hardware store and smell to high heaven, or you actually had an artist in the house and they were mildly toxic and they used turpentine and it did smell to high heaven. Well, that's not what oil paints are anymore. So anyway, oil paints are the easiest medium, and all this rubbing, scrubbing, moving, everything that I'm doing right now could be done in acrylics. In fact, the class that I'm doing this Thursday, I believe we're going to use acrylics just for the speed of drawing. But now all of a sudden I'm wishing, oh, you know what? I wish we were doing oil. But that's all right. We'll get by. Wish we were doing oil in my class this Thursday, I'm saying. And again, a hint of reflection. Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted myself and never finished the thought. If you discover that you have rendered the human figure, one of the figures in your paintings, too carefully, too tightly, you simply come back and mess it up. Just rub a thumb, a finger, a brush, a rag on your finger, just mess it up. And very often that actually does the job, believe it or not. It's all you have to do is just run some mess through it. And then perhaps if you overdo it, it's real easy to clean up your mess. Does that make sense? You see me often scratch through a painting like that. And then if the scratch accomplished a little too much scratching, then it's real easy, as I just did there with my pinky, it's real easy to come back and just heal with the wet paint. Again, this only works in the oils. Heals the scratch. Very easy fix. Okay, I think I'm a little happier with this figure now. He's the one that I left behind a while ago because I thought I was done. Little bit of almost, I feel like, too much energy being reflected in these figures. There's a little bit too much arm twisting and so forth. So let me see if it, yeah, that helps. If this guy's arm just comes straight down. How about this guy? What would happen? What would happen if his arm was like on his hip? Let's give that a try. Again, I invite you to notice that the ease with which I experiment. Just, okay, yeah, let's give that a try. The hard part is accurate figures, accurate ratios, loose rendering. Those are like opposite impulses, right? Those two impulses are opposite to each other. Also, here I just painted this guy's belly with that one stroke. Another pretty important concept, I talk about this quite a bit, is I'm wondering if maybe this arm should just go straight down. Nope, that doesn't work. I'll back out the way it was. Yeah, after all that, I think I like it best just going straight out. So what do I do with all those pencil lines? Well, I could do this. That takes care of most of it. Then I'm going to mix up some gray, again, to match what's already there. Now let's do this arm. You might get the feeling that this is not the fastest way to render a human being, and I think you'd be exactly correct. This is not the fastest way. So if it's speed you're after, I don't think this is not the way to go. I don't seem to be able to empty my hands to save my life. Once again, I changed his arm yet one more time and may change it 17 more. I don't know. I hope not. I sincerely hope not. I'm getting a little anxious to get these figures done. Be that as it may, I think you're getting a good clinic, at least on how I, just one person, this guy's wearing glasses. How about that? All of a sudden I noticed he was wearing glasses, and I was able to see that without forcing it to happen. So I'm okay with that. I'm going to leave those. Let's look at this girl now. I mentioned also the other day I usually try to keep my figures racially neutral, just to avoid anybody being able to identify and say, you have too many white people, you have too many black people, you have black and white people. I just don't even want to get into that realm. So I often try to keep them racially obscure. At the moment they all look a little bit white, but not necessarily. I say I'm going to work on the girl, and I come back to the middle guy anyway. There's one mark right here. Get rid of that. At some point, not too long, this girl ended up with one hand up here by her chest, as if she's holding like a purse strap or something like that. I don't think I'm going to try to render the purse strap, but it's a I think a natural enough looking position that I'm going to go with it. I'm going to let that remain. Oh, I started to say earlier, and I just distracted myself again. I think, and I feel pretty strongly about this one, and this is what I teach, and I believe it, you should have, your figures should be thin. If you make them normal, quote unquote, average American, chubby, 20 to 40 pounds overweight, the average American, it'll look like you're trying to make a statement or render, you know, that is, in my opinion, that is not what you want. These are just supposed to be, here's my expression, these are just, you know, people. That's the whole point. You have to see, hear and see, you know, people, not particular people. I'm not making any kind of social commentary and so forth. So again, in my opinion, your people should be thin. If you make them real, it'll look like you're making a point. And yes, I wish all artists knew that. Do not make your people real or average or typical. Or I could be a little bit funny and say, okay, make them typical French people, skinny. Do not make them typical American people, chubby. Again, because it's a distraction in your painting. There are a few exceptions to that. One is if you're drawing a farm scene and you really want to convey the notion that this is a old, worn out, the expression in Texas is stove up. He's all stove up. That's bent over, bow-legged, arthritic. If you're trying to make a point, then yes. If you're trying to say you're doing a painting of a nursing home, yes, then you can do all the people chubby. But if you're just trying to say, you know, like I'm doing here, you know, people, then you make them size, the woman is a size 1 or a size 0, because then people just ignore her and accept her as a, you know, woman, person. Okay? Again, I feel pretty strong like that's right, and not everybody knows that or gets that. I have seen some successful architectural renders. You know, one of the industries, one of the people in the world who do this kind of thing pretty regularly is people who do architectural renderings. A lot of that nowadays is done with computer and photography, but there's still, including myself, some who do old-fashioned, hand-drawn, hand-painted um, paint architectural renderings, and they have to decide. We, people who do architectural renderings, have to decide, want my people what shape. And I have seen some fairly successful who do square-ish people. But I think, and they're usually, as I remember, people in business suits, square-ish. And they look like business people, 40-pound overweight, and their figure is more square than what I recommend. When I do architectural renderings, I do not do square-ish people. I do. So in the last couple minutes, you've seen me put a skirt on this woman. I've gone back and forth as to whether she's wearing a skirt or shorts or long pants. And we'll see. At the moment, she's wearing long pants. We'll find out if she stays. Oh, I just put a bracelet on her. That was kind of cute. It just kind of happened kind of by accident. But if I come in here with a little bit of flesh colored, very muted flesh color, by the way, and paint around those lines, that it, in fact, will turn into a bit of jewelry. One of my most common mistakes when I'm painting figures in this manner is to paint cone heads accidentally. So let me cut the top of this woman's head off just a little bit. Now, I think I'm actually going to put some hair on her. I don't need to, and I tend to leave most of my women in paintings with shorter hair, up hair rather than down hair. And that is very much just me. Let's put a little bit more light right here on the top part of her chest and the shoulder. So these two people are almost wearing, not quite, but almost wearing exactly the same color. He's a little bluer than she is, and I like that. And what about those legs? All those legs. I'm pretty happy with them, mostly because we tend to ignore them to a large degree, which is pretty much what I want. I want them to look the right length. I want them to be there, but I don't want them to get a lot of attention. It's ironic, isn't it? And just this little bit that I've done here today, talking about how to fit figures in a landscape painting, is a good example of what I mean, why I say that abstract realism, or what most people call impressionistic painting, is actually more difficult than realism. Realism, you just copy the dang thing. That's all you do. You just do realistic. Now, if you can't do realistic, I suppose then you would say, well, it's hard. But that's a skill you can learn. But trying to render figures. Now, something's wrong with this girl's face. I'm finally going to address that. Trying to capture figures, but do it in a loose manner. Of course, I want it to look like I just scribbled it, like it all happened in a few minutes. It only took me a second to do. That's how I want it to look. Again, what's that Italian word? It'll come to me in a second. The courtiers, the people at court, were expected to behave in a certain manner, carefree and light. Let's give this girl an open neck. Maybe that'll help feminize her a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Oh, that was good. Way to go, Nelson. Thanks. Appreciate it. Okay, now do I want just a few, little bit of sparkle, a little bit of highlight on these figures? Maybe just a little bit. There's a little lighter gray on the woman. And let's do just a touch of lighter blue on the man in the middle, with the blue shirt up here on his shoulder. Sprezzatura. I'm sure I'm butchering that Italian accent, but that's the word, sprezzatura. The air of ease and nonchalance, like, oh no, Sir King, live forever. It was nothing, I promise. And the irony is bad as that is for human real interaction. It's a good way to describe good painting. That line's too strong, too strong. Now this woman's forehead is too high. Let's bring that down just a little bit. There we go. There we go. Now she's got the top of her head is too high. I'm going to carve it down yet again. Now it's too low. There. Now the front of her face is too mushed in. Let's do a little mark going this way, just a little bit. Does that make sense? You want it to look like it was done with sprezzatura, like it was done with complete aplomb, A-P-L-O-M-B, and freedom, not a care in the world. You just, oh yeah, just a little something I whipped off. Yeah. It took me about 90 seconds to do these figures. Oh yeah, no, I do it all the time. Yeah, it happens all the time. Just a few seconds. Look, you can see, just stroke here, and you're all done. And as a matter of fact, I do feel like it's a little bit too tight still, in spite of all that. So, did that have any effect? Yeah, it did. I'm going to do one more thing, I think. Of course, don't believe me, I always say one more thing and then I keep going for a while. Okay, the next thing is working on the reflection on the road at their feet a little bit. I have no doubt that I'm going to look at this painting for a couple days. I am thinking possibly about using this for my entry into the Oil Painters of America Eastern Regional Show competition deadline. I have to decide this week which paintings. I can do 2 paintings. I'm thinking about possibly using this one because I like it, but I want to look at it for a couple days, see if I still like it after looking at it. So, but I think that's good enough for now. Touch of warm on this lady's shoulder to reflect all this light that's back here behind her and mess it up. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Let me pick you up in just a second and give you a flyby. Flyover view of this part of the painting. So hang on, sorry, little rocky road here. Just so you can see it before I go, okay? Here we go. Good enough. And let's see it in context.